Hey everybody, good evening. It is John King and I am here to talk to you about the Dream for All program. Really appreciate everybody being here with me today and talking with me about this amazing program that is coming live. Right now we have, 10 days left? It's the 5th. We have until the 16th, 11 days left, but today's pretty much over. So I am doing these webinars now twice a week to try and make sure I'm getting as much information as I can out there. My goal right now is to share and answer questions because there's a lot of questions out there, and the challenge is we're in crunch time. So I've got a lot of people who are reaching out. There's about 80 preferred loan officers around the state that are, how do I want to say, we've demonstrated a knowledge of all of these programs enough that the state recommends us to people to take great care of them through this process. The problem is that the state is, let's get rid of that. Okay. Sorry, I've got an issue really quickly. Okay, I'm good. All right, so the problem is there's so many people trying to get into this program. And so right now I'm shifting really into group education mode. So my team and I are working really hard to make sure that we're taking great care of everybody. I will tell you that there's a lot of people who are reaching out. Some loan officers have already said, I'm done taking on new clients. We are not going to stop taking on new clients, but I'm trying to do this kind of in batches. And so that's a big part of why I'm doing this as a webinar, because we don't have time to talk to everybody who is trying to get pre-approved. We've already issued, just with our team, 100 pre-approvals. I've got 150 more people right now that are asking us to get them pre-approved. And we're going to get through every single one of them, including anybody else who wants to do it. But we're not going to be able to sit down and take an hour with you and talk about all the different scenarios, the pros and cons. So I'm trying to do that through a webinar format. So I've got this webinar tonight. I've got another one that's going to be on Saturday morning at 10. And then next Wednesday night at 7. So we're trying to keep these rotated at different times, different days to fit into what everybody's needs are. All right, so let's start with questions. If you have questions, I've got about a dozen people watching live right now across multiple platforms. If you have questions about anything at all related to the Dream for All program, as I'm talking, please bring it up. Please make this as interactive as you possibly can so that I can really help to answer your questions and make sure that I'm delivering what you need to know. So let's start with, what is the Dream for All program? It is the single largest down payment assistance program that I have been a part of in my entire 26-year career. It's also the most expensive. So the Dream for All program provides you with a loan. That loan provides up to 20% of the purchase price, not to exceed $150,000. So you have the ability to buy a house for $750,000 and you're only making a payment on $600,000. That's a huge difference in your monthly payment, like a significant difference in your monthly payment that can take what seems unaffordable to buy a house in today's market and make it significantly more affordable. But there's a cost. The biggest cost is long-term. You are paying back the money to the state always. You will never, ever get away with not paying back the money to the state. But you also pay back a portion of the increase in your value. Now, you pay back the state a proportion of what they invested into your home. So if the state invested 20% of the purchase price, they get 20% of the profit, not profit, of the increase in value, which is different than profit. So they get 20% of how much the price has gone up. Some people are going to tell you this program is a scam. This program is a horrible idea because you have to share your equity with the state. Who wants to do that? I get it. But can you afford the monthly payment if you don't? Can you get the price of the house low enough to afford that monthly payment? Do you have the money for the down payment, or are you willing to use down payment assistance because that's going to cause your payment to be a little bit higher? And if you can, or if you have your own money for a down payment, or you have family who can give you a down payment as a gift, then you're better off doing that, because your family might have an emotional cost of giving you a gift for a down payment, but financially they don't want anything out of the sale of your home. The state, they're saying, hey, we're going to invest 20% into your house. You're going to pay back 20% of how much the house price has grown. So you have to decide, is this the right program for me? I don't know. I've helped a lot of people use this program. I've had a few people who have said, John, I'm out. I don't think it's a good idea. And the program isn't right for everybody, but it is a huge opportunity to get you into home ownership. And guess what? You get 80% of the increase in value goes to you. So you have an opportunity to not only own a home and not have to worry about your landlord kicking you out, not have to worry about the rent increases that come year after year after year, but you also have the security of having a house that is your own, knowing your monthly payment is stable, and you're still getting 80% of the appreciation. You're getting the tax write-off. You're getting all the financial benefits, just a smaller proportion of them, but you're making a smaller proportion of the monthly payment. So it's fair. Okay. Carrie, thank you so much for the question. Yes, there's a cap on how much you have to pay back. So it's 2.5 times what you got originally. So, and that's the increase. You still have to pay back the original amount. So let me give you an example. And thank you for asking that question. So if you bought a house for $500,000, you got $100,000 from the state. That makes the math super easy. That means the most you'll ever pay back the state is $250,000 in appreciation. But let's be real. What that means is you bought the house for $500,000. The state gets 20% of the increase. So if the house value went from $500,000 to $1.5 million, the increase was $1 million. 20% of that is $200,000. That is still less than 2.5 times what they loaned you of the 100 grand. So you're paying them back the 100 grand that they loaned you. You're paying them back 20% of the increase, capped at 2.5 times. But the home value would have to go up significantly in order for it, like more than double. The home value would have to go up 2.5 times. In other words, at a $2 million price, you went from $500,000 to $2 million. That's where you stop having to share with the state. I don't know about you, but if my house went up by $1.5 million, and that's what it took for me to stop sharing with the state, anything above that, my gosh, I mean, I'm still walking away. If I shared with the state $250,000 of that increase, I'm still getting for myself $1.25 million in growth, in appreciation. That's a pretty huge opportunity. So it's a lot of money to say, oh my gosh, I could pay back the state $350,000. That's horrible. The only way you know that much is if the house was worth closer to $2 million when you bought it for $500,000. So it's perspective. And if you said, I'm not going to buy that house, I am not willing to do this program because I'm unwilling to pay the state $350,000 in the end, you gave up on the 1.2 something million, $1.25 million that was your share, because you get 80%. They only get 20%. So yes, I think that it is better if you can afford to do it on your own, because then you get the entire 1.5 million. And I know that everybody's going to be complaining that you only got 1.25 million instead of 1.5 million. I get it. It's a horrible deal. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. They get a fair percentage of what they invested. So I believe it's worth it. Again, I believe it's better if you don't have to get their help. But if it's the only way you can buy a home, it's a great opportunity. Thank you for that question. Reminding everybody, as I'm getting more people joining, please ask questions. That's what I'm here for. I want to be able to answer your questions. And so if you have a question, post it. If you're watching recorded, post a question and I'll catch it later. Okay. So down payment assistance requires, this program requires that you are a few things. It requires that you are a first generation home buyer. This is one of the harder ones to understand, when it's one of the harder ones to achieve. So a first generation home buyer requires one person on the loan, just one person, to meet this criteria. And there's 2 criteria. So only one person on the loan needs to meet this, but that one person has to meet both on their own. Like if you have 2 people on the loan and one of you has one criteria and one of you has the other, that's not okay. But that one person has to have both criteria. The first one has to do with yourself. And that is that you personally have not had your name on anything housing related. No co-ownership of a house, no co-signing on a second mortgage for somebody, nothing. You can't have had your name on anything related to a house for the last 7 years. That's the first rule. The second rule is your parents cannot own a home today in the United States. Or if they're deceased, they cannot have owned a home the day they passed away. It's that simple. There is no, oh, well, you know, my mom owned the house with my dad, and then my mom died when they owned the house, and now my dad has sold it, so they don't own that house anymore. Your mom owned the house the day she died. The state's really, really clear about the rules. It's really simple. If your parents are alive, do they own a home today in the United States? If your parents are deceased, either one, did they own a home the day they passed away in the United States? There is a get out of jail free card, and that is if you spent any time in foster care or institutional care, we don't care about your parents' ownership situation. You still have to have not had your name on something in the last 7 years, but if you had spent any time in foster care or institutional care, we don't care about your parents' ownership situation. All right, so that's the first rule. One person must be first generation. The state's going to check. It's actually a big part of the lottery process. The state is going to shut down the lottery. You cannot register after 5 p.m. Monday, March 16th. So you literally have 7 business days left to get this done, plus 2 weekends. Okay, so we've got to move quickly to get you into that lottery. Once the lottery closes at 5 p.m. on March 16th, the state is going to bring in a private investigation service. They are going to double check to make sure that all of the winners are in fact first generation. So that's the key, is you can say whatever you want. There's even a checkbox there that says, I don't know who my parents are. That's cool, but they're going to double check. They're not just going to take, oh, if you don't know who your parents are, then we trust you. It's not a big deal. They're taking it very, very seriously. Last time they did this lottery, the only other time they did this lottery, 17,000 people applied for the lottery. 1,700 got lottery tickets. That's 10%. 3 times that, or another 30% got on the waiting list. It took 2 months for them to get through all of those people in the background checks. So that lottery period, the registration ended on April 28th. It was June 29th that they notified the winners. Now, there's no guarantee it's going to be 2 months this time. It could take longer. It could take shorter. I can make arguments on why I think that it'll do both of those things. We don't know. But our best guess is somewhere around the middle of May based upon what happened back in 2024. So you literally have 11 days. You have 7 business days to get into this program, okay? And Carmen is asking if the streaming is happening. Yes, Carmen. Try logging out. She said her screen is loading. I'm coming back in. All right. Well, she can't hear me or see me, so I might as well type it. All right. So the program is taking time to double check to make sure you are a first generation homebuyer. Now, when you fill out the registration portal, make sure that you are putting in the registration everyone who is first generation. Okay. I have a video I did last week on Tuesday. I took like 45 minutes to walk through the entire registration process, how to log into the portal, what information you have to fill out. Find that on my YouTube channel, watch it. It's good information. I walk you through every step of it, but make sure you're putting everyone on the loan. Perfect. Carmen's in. Okay. So, Carrie has a question. I'll bring up, or I'll pull up the question right now. Carrie, give me 1 second. So, you have to make sure when you register that each person who could be considered first generation is marked as such. There's a lot of reasons why. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but just take that as a fact, okay? Even though only one person must be, you're going to want to mark everyone just in case something changes. The second rule, actually, I'm not going to switch to the second rule. I'm going to take Carrie's question. So Carrie says, what about grandparents? Grandmother pass and dad pass. Do you get a piece of the property? And you get a piece of his property. Okay. So for the first generation rule, it says at the moment that your father passed away, did he own a home? And so if your grandparents' home was inherited by your dad, when your dad passes away, As a matter of fact, I think you said your dad did pass away, and then it came to you. There's two problems there. Number one, you're not first generation because when your dad died, he owned a home. That's it. It's that simple. No matter where that home went, no matter who got that home, when your dad died, he owned a home. The other part of that is if you inherited it, then you personally own a home today. Now, it's okay to own a home today as long as you're not the first generation home buyer. So Carrie, if you've got a spouse or a co-owner who's going to live with you, because everybody on the loan has to occupy the property, if that person who's borrowing with you, if they're first generation, then none of this matters. But if you're the only person on the loan, you don't qualify for this program because you don't meet the criteria of first generation for both reasons, because your name has been on something mortgage related in the last 7 years, and your father owned a home the day that he passed away. So that's the critical piece of this that I want to make sure that you understand. And the state is hiring a private investigation service to do background checks to confirm all of this. Now, one of the questions we're getting a lot is, hey, John, do I have to upload my birth certificate? And the answer is it's optional unless you don't have the contact information for your parents. If you don't have their contact information, you have to upload it so that they can do their research and find it. If you do, they want you to upload it, but it isn't required. Okay, so that's just one more piece about it. All right, so that's the first requirement. You have to be first generation. The second requirement, everybody on the loan, everybody has to be a first-time home buyer. John, what's the difference? Well, I'm glad you asked. The difference is a first-time home buyer means you have not lived in a home. I see your question here about num-nums. Num-nums. Oh, I love it. All right, I love that username. Anyway, num-nums has a question. I'll get to it in just a second. A first-time home buyer means that you have not lived in, occupied, resided in personally a home owned by you or your spouse anytime in the last 3 years. So you could own an inherited property. If you never lived in there, or if you haven't lived in there in the last 3 years, you are a first-time home buyer. But you're not first generation because you've owned it. You've owned anything. You've had your name on a mortgage note, anything mortgage related or housing related except manufactured homes in a park. That's the only exception to the rule. So that's the first-time home buyer rule. Okay, num-nums asked the question. When you mean to own, you mean fully own or parents are paying off a home? All right, so own means your name is on title. So here's the deal. When you buy a house, I'm gonna give you this example. So the question kind of is, what num-nums is asking is, does it matter whether it's paid off or not? Like, is that what you mean when you say own? No, it doesn't. It means your name is on the ownership papers. Think about when you buy a car. When you buy a car, who owns the car? Now you're going to say, well, the bank does because the bank's part, I owe the bank money. No, you own the car. The bank has a loan. You have a loan that the bank has secured that loan against the car. You're the owner of the car. You have to pay for the insurance. You're the one that has to put gas in it, all that stuff. I mean, like, you own the car. You are the legal owner. You decide if you want to sell it or not because it is yours. The same as a home. Even if you owe money, it's still your home. The bank just has a loan against it. So when you're asking, hey, when you mean to own, do you mean fully own or parents are paying off a home? If your parents' name is on title of a home, whether there's a loan on it or it's paid off, doesn't matter. If your parents' name is on title to a home today, if they're alive, or the day they passed away, if they're not alive, in the United States, then you are not first generation. Now, I have lots of other programs that help you out, even if you're not first generation. They're just not as big a down payment assistance as this program. There are some programs in certain regions. There's some programs in Los Angeles County. There's some programs in San Diego County that have similar amounts of down payment assistance. They don't require you to be a first-time home buyer. Excuse me, they do. They don't require you to be first generation. They do require you to be a first-time home buyer, okay? But those programs have significantly lower income limits. Really, really hard to qualify for those programs because you have to make a much, much lower amount of income than what Dream for All allows you to make. And it's really hard to afford a home in Los Angeles County or San Diego County when you're at that lower end of the income scale. Okay, num-nums says, great explanation. You're welcome. I appreciate that. And I love some num-nums. All right, so let's click that off. Are you going to go away? Yep, perfect. Okay, so those are the rules of the program. Everybody on the loan has to be a first-time home buyer. One person on the loan has to be first generation. Everybody on the loan has to live in the property. You only have to live there for a year. If you say, hey, John, I want to live there for a year and then I want to move out and I want to rent the property, I don't care. I don't care. The law, the requirements, the rules are that you must occupy within 60 days. You must maintain occupancy for a year. Them's the rules, okay? Everybody on the loan has to meet that criteria. So that's critical to understand. The final thing is one person on the loan has to currently be a California resident. So there's some not strange, but there's very specific rules that qualify you for this program. Aside from that, it's a normal, conventional loan. It's backed by Fannie Mae. The credit score requirements are very, very specific. You have to have at least a 680 credit score. Everybody on the loan has to have the 680 credit score. There are certain exceptions if you're considered low income for the county you're buying in. There are certain exceptions that allow you to go down to a 660 credit score. Okay, but that's something I'll take a look at. We pull a soft credit report up front. There is a cost of the soft credit report. It's $58. Soft credit in general has skyrocketed. And so there is a cost up front for the soft credit. We don't charge you anything else. We won't charge you anything else unless we get you into contract to purchase a home. And you're still not paying any of the rest of it until you get right before you get your keys. Okay, so this is simply offsetting what the cost is of us paying for the credits. Aside from that, there's no cost or obligation. There's some people who are saying, John, this is too quick. I can't get this done in 9 or 10 or 11 days. I want to sit down and talk to you for an hour and think about it. Here's the deal. Other than the cost of the credit, there's no cost here for you to get into the lottery. You have a 1 in 10 chance. By the way, I have no clue. That's not true. The last lottery, you had a 1 in 10 chance of winning and a 3 out of 10 chance of being on the waiting list. I have no clue what your chances are this time because I don't know exactly how much money is left and I don't know how many people are going to be getting into the lottery. The key is the lottery is divvied up by region that you live in today. But many people ask me, John, the income limits, can I say I'm buying in a county that has higher income limits because I make too much money? The income limits are changing anyway every single year. They change in June. So nobody cares about the income limits. We care because I want you to not be disappointed. But the truth is the income limits could go down in June and you could barely be under the income limits today. And then the income limits go down and now you don't qualify anymore. You could get a pay raise between now and when you get your voucher and you don't qualify anymore. You could have any number of things that could happen that would cause you to not qualify. The same holds true if you barely don't qualify today. If you are I've got a couple of clients that say, John, I'm getting a pay raise. I know I'm going to get a pay raise in June. I've got a promotion coming. It's a big promotion, and that's going to get me high enough to get the purchase price I want. Okay, well, let's get you into the lottery now with whatever purchase price you qualify for. Because the lottery winning ticket, the voucher doesn't have a price listed on it. It doesn't. Your submission does, but that's more for tracking and projections. It's not actually required that you stick with that number. My goal right now is to get you into the lottery. Then I'm going to educate you. And I'm trying to educate you right now, but it's impossible to do just with how many people we have that are trying to get their pre-approvals done. So my focus for the next week is educating you, if necessary, one-on-one about your exact situation, about, hey, John, how can I make this work in order to get into the lottery? But the education, the strategy when it comes to should I use the lottery or not? Should I switch to a different program? Should I wait or should I buy now? Where are interest rates going? Where's housing prices going? Those are all strategies that we're going to cover after the portal closes on March 16th. And if you decide afterwards, I don't want to use the program. I already bought a house. I want to move out of state. I don't want to use it. as soon as you get a voucher, you can cancel your voucher and let it go to the next person on the waiting list. So there's no harm in getting into it. Now, if you know you don't want to do it, I'm not trying to talk you into it. But if you're not sure if it's the right thing and you want to spend an hour with me going over pros and cons and scenarios and what if I do this and what if I do that, we will have ample time to do that on March 17th and beyond. But today, I've got to focus on getting you and all of your friends into the lottery. And so that's the key. Like a month ago, I'd take an hour with you and we'd explain all of it and we'd cover all the different scenarios. Today, we don't have the time for that. So that's why I'm doing this webinar now. I'm doing another one this Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm doing another one next Wednesday at 7 p.m. I want you to ask me questions. Please keep asking me questions. Even if it's questions that are specific to your situation, there might be other people watching this that have the same need. And so without divulging personal information, I want you to give me as many questions as you can. And here we go. Here's a question today. All right. So we've got the question is, can we leave the house after living in it for a year or so and then rent it out? Are we obligated to live in California or are we free to relocate to other states? Great question. So the rule is you have to move in within 60 days. The rule is you have to stay living there for 1 year. After that, you can do anything you want. You can move out. You can move out of state. You can move out of the country. You can move to Mars. There's no rule on where you have to live afterwards. You can put grandma in there if you want. You can put your kids in there if you want. You can charge rent. You can not charge rent. You can do anything you want. It's your home. You own it. Yes, the bank has a loan on it, but you own it. You get to do whatever you want. So there is no rule that says certain things. What you cannot do is transfer the ownership. You can't add somebody to title. You can't take somebody off of title. You can't transfer title. As soon as you do any of those things, it's due and payable immediately. Speaking of due and payable, here's what happens. Here's what causes you to have to pay back the money. I'm going to repeat again. You will always pay back the money. There's no situation in which you're not going to pay them back. You're going to pay them back when you sell the home. You're going to pay them back in 30 years when you finish paying off the big loan, or you're going to pay them back when you refinance, but they'll let you refinance once without paying them back. Let me give you some math to this. Let's pretend you bought a $500,000 home. First of all, in buying a $500,000 home, you have three scenarios. It's oversimplified, but it really works that way. You can choose to say, hey, I want the whole 100,000, the 20% going towards down payment. And I am going to use, Anna, I see your question. I'll get to you in 1 second. So I want to put that 100,000 towards down payment and down payment only. That's great, but you have to still pay closing costs. Closing costs on a non-down payment assistance loan, on a normal loan, are around 3% of the purchase price. With down payment assistance, Dream for All in particular, but most down payment assistance programs, it's about 1% higher. So on average, it's about 4% of your purchase price. So you say, okay, John, I want to buy this house and I want to put the $100,000 of this $500,000 price towards down payment. You're going to owe $400,000. You're also, that's your loan amount. The down payment of 100 comes from the state. The 20,000 for closing costs comes out of your pocket. Now you can also say, I want to put more out of my pocket, but there's a cap. The most extra you can put out of your pocket is 5% of the purchase price. So in this case, that'd be an extra $25,000. So you say, I want to put the most out of pocket. That's 5% for down payment extra and 4% for closing costs. So 9% of your purchase price is the most you can put out of pocket. 5% going towards down payment, 4% going towards closing costs. You can also say the opposite and say, you know what, John? I don't want to pay the closing costs. Can you loan them to me? Absolutely. Now you're not putting 20% down. Now you have mortgage insurance, and mortgage insurance is an extra monthly payment that's going to stay on there for a long time. So what I normally advise people to do is to prepay the mortgage insurance fee. That's anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of your purchase price as a one-time fee. So that I round up and say, fine, if you want me to include the closing costs in the loan amount, then your closing costs are more like 5% instead of 4%. So in that case, you would owe $425,000 on the $500,000 home. Okay. Later on, interest rates drop. You say, John, rates right now are at 6 and now they're at 4.5. I want that lower rate. You can have it. The question is, do you want the lower rate to lower your payment? Which, who wouldn't want a lower payment? Well, let me explain why you wouldn't. Because you can also use the lower rate to pay off the state. Even though it's your first refinance and you're allowed to not pay off the state, maybe you should. Because you can pay off the state. The quicker you pay off the state, the less they get of your equity because you don't have as much equity to give them. And so the sooner you buy out your partner, the longer you have to grow 100% of the equity instead of only 80% of the equity. So maybe if rates drop from 6 to 4.5, we can take the big loan and we can take the small loan and we can combine them together into one loan and the payment stays the same. Wouldn't that be great to buy out your partner without actually having to spend anything extra? So that's a scenario you could consider. Or you could say, I want to refinance and just take the money in my pocket right now and I'll continue to owe the state later. But you can only do that once. If rates then drop again down to 3%, you're like, I want to refinance again now. I want to lower my payment again. You can't, because the state said you can only do that once. So now the problem with this program becomes, when do I pull the trigger to refinance? If rates are at 6 and they drop to 5, do I do it? Or do I wait until they drop to 4.5? And if they drop to 4.5, do I do it? Or I wait until they drop to 4? You can wait forever. At some point, you've wasted more money each month waiting than you did in saving money long-term. And so there's a point you have to just rip off the Band-Aid and say, I'm going to refinance now, but that's the only time you can do it. The next time you do it, you have to pay back the states. Okay. So that's one of the challenges of this program. It doesn't make it a bad program. It just makes it challenging in how we navigate it. But I plan on being with you for a long time. I have a lot of clients that I've helped with purchasing using this program over the last couple of years, and they're all starting to come back now to talk about refinancing, and I'm helping to guide them through that process. All right. Anna says, if my household income proves to be higher than the income threshold after I receive a voucher, what happens then? Well, hopefully you're working with me, and you are. That's good news. And the problem is, if we can, the solution is if we can be creative in how we look at your income, great. If we can't, you can't use your voucher. Now, when I say be creative in how we look at your income, maybe we only count one person's income. Maybe we look at overtime and bonus versus base pay, and we only count the base pay, and we don't prove the overtime and the bonus. There's lots of things that we can play with, but the truth is, if your income goes up or the income limit goes down, and you're now on the wrong side of it after you got a voucher, after you got in the lottery, you're out of luck, because it doesn't grandfather you in. The rules are you must meet the income limits. You must have the credit score required. You must have a job. All of those things have to be true at the time that you use your voucher, not when you got pre-approved. When you got pre-approved, we have to make sure they're true, but they have to maintain being true, not just through when you get your voucher, but when you actually use your voucher to purchase a home. So that's the challenge. And that's part of why when I say 40% of the people who got into the lottery were able to use a voucher, 40% of them didn't buy a home. 40% of them got a voucher in 2024. Well, between 2024 and 2025. August of 2025, the remaining vouchers were issued to everybody else on the waiting list. I have one buyer. We drew loan documents today. It is my last 2024 applicant whose voucher expired 2.5 weeks ago, but all you have to do is be in contract before your voucher expires. And so his voucher expired 2.5 weeks ago, but he was in contract. We are proceeding. He'll be signing his papers probably tomorrow or Monday. He'll have his keys early next week. That is my final Dream for All client from 2024's lottery. So that was a long time afterwards. We started his loan 3 weeks ago. So the income limits have changed not once, but twice since he went into the lottery in April of 2024. He got his lottery submission April 2024. June of 2024, the income limits changed. June of 2024, the vouchers were issued. He was on the waiting list, way down on the waiting list. He didn't think there was a chance of him getting a home. I didn't think there was a chance of him getting a home. But everybody on the waiting list by August of 2025, so a year and 2 months later, the income limits had changed again in June of 2025. He got his voucher in August of 2025, and he had 6 months to find a home. And he found the perfect home for himself 5 days before his voucher expired. So there are ways to make this work. I am an expert in helping you navigate the waters. The problem is there's so many variables. There's so many things that could change. We don't know. And so what this creates is an opportunity for me to help be creative. And so the question that Anna was asking, if the income limits change or if our income changes, we're going to have to try and be creative. There's ways that we can find to navigate through, and there's ways that we cannot find to make it work. I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm really good at what I do. Now, I don't believe that longevity means quality, but it's part of it. I've been in the mortgage industry for 26 years. I've never left. A lot of my colleagues bailed out multiple times as the times got tough. We've had multiple tough periods in my industry, and I have built a successful business because I'm good at what I do, because I do what I tell people I'm going to do. I don't overpromise. I tell you the truth. So Anna, I don't know what's going to happen if the income limits go down or your income goes up. I can't guarantee we're going to have a solution. What I can guarantee you is if there is a solution to be had, I will find it, and I won't give up on you if you don't give up on me. That's my mantra, and I plan on doing that. That's the same thing if you don't get a voucher. If you say, John, we spent all this time getting everything together and rushing to get in there, and I met with you after March 16th, and we talked about strategy, and I lost, didn't get a voucher. This is a complete waste of time. No, it's not. I have people getting into the lottery now that I had worked with 2 years ago to get into the lottery. I have some people getting back into the lottery now that did get a lottery ticket, but they won, they got a voucher. They couldn't find a home. They had 6 months to find a home, and they were unwilling to settle. I get it. This is a long-term thing. I don't think you should settle, but I think you should be realistic. So you have to decide, do I want perfection or do I want the right home? The perfect home is going to be really hard to find. And then getting your offer accepted on that perfect home, that if it's that perfect for you, it's probably that perfect for other people. And so that's a big part of this process. Is it's an emotional roller coaster because you're getting excited, you know you're going to make it, and then the rug's pulled out from underneath you. And so you have to be resilient. Even somebody who got a voucher that is positive it's going to be able to work, sometimes it just doesn't. Okay? Sometimes the market works against you. And that's where I say, I get it, but I'm not going to bail on you if you don't bail on me. There's people that I've worked with for 5 or 10 years before I got them into a home. There's people who had credit challenges that weren't ready to make it work. And it took us 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they were ready. But those are some of my favorite stories. I had a client call me a year ago and say, John, I just want to let you know that, my house that I bought with you in 2018, I just sold and I made $300,000 on that sale of the home. And I don't know if you remember the story, John, but we actually met in 2013 and my credit was horrible and my income wasn't good enough. And you gave me a game plan. And it took me 5 years to realize that game plan and to make it come true. But you stuck by my side. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have bought that home. And buying that home provided me with $300,000 that I never, ever could have imagined saving that much money in my life. Home ownership can be life-changing. You say, yeah, John, that's great, but they didn't get Dream for All. That $300,000 wouldn't have been their money. You're right. They would have taken $60,000 of that $300,000 gain and paid it to the state. They would have walked away with $240,000. I still think it's worth it. I still think it's worth it for all of the non-financial reasons to be a homeowner. And then you add the financial reasons, and that's the cherry on the top. Now, I'm not saying home ownership is right for everybody. I will tell you, I've had people who I said, look, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't know how you're going to make the monthly payment given all of the other things that you do. And they said, we're going to figure it out. Home ownership is really important to me. And some of them failed over time. Some of them were so tight and so stretched, but they were positive they could make it work. And then they couldn't over time. And I've seen a lot of stories in my 26 years of doing this. And the truth is, look, I can't talk you out of it. I'm going to advise you. I'm going to give you what I think you should do. But if you're going to do it, I'll help you do it. Because at least you have somebody on your side that I know is going to tell you the truth. That when something bad happens down the road, if something bad happens down the road, I'm going to be here to help talk you through it. A lot of loan officers, they don't care anymore. Once the paycheck's done, they're not here anymore. I'm here to take great care of you, whether it's today or tomorrow. And I want to make that clear because right now, it's not going to feel like that. Right now, I'm talking to you via YouTube. I'm talking to you via a Zoom call, a webinar. And you're like, John, I had somebody email me today and say, John, this is too stressful. I can't do this rushed. I want to sit down face to face. I'm a relationship kind of person. And I said, I get it. But we don't have the time for that right now. And we have a deadline that's 11 days away. And they said, it's not worth it to me. And I said, I completely understand. Let's set up a time to meet a few weeks from now. And let's talk about strategies with other programs. There's no rush. I'm not pushing you into this program. There'll be another lottery sometime in the future. We just don't know when. We won't know until July when the state budget comes out on whether they're going to have money for next year's lottery. Every year in July, we will find out if there's money for the following year. So we knew July of 2025 that there was going to be a lottery in 2026. We knew in July of 2024 there was not going to be a lottery in 2025. So the key is get in now. Figure out later if it's the right or the wrong thing. And if it's not right for you, that's okay. You can click the cancel button and back out of it. But the key right now is if you think this will work for you, you need to act quickly. Okay. So I've covered a lot. I want to share a couple of other things kind of on how the process works from here, what steps you need to take. Remember, I plan on being here until 8 o'clock unless we run out of questions. So if you have questions, ask them. But I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about what has to happen now. So the first thing I will tell you, let's open up my screen. Oops, that's not what I meant. Oh, oops, that's not what I meant to do either. All right, let's do this. And let's do that. That's what I meant to do. Okay, so this is my website, californiadreamforall.info. So if you scan the QR code that is right up, let's see if I can make my finger there. There we go, right there. I don't know, up there. Okay, so if you scan that QR code, or if you type in that link, californiadreamforall.info, it's going to take you to this page. Front of this page are some very important things. So this is the webinar I'm doing right now. You're going to see tomorrow morning a webinar for Saturday. So I'm doing Saturday at 10 a.m. and the next Wednesday at 7 p.m. All right, I got a question. I'm going to keep jumping back and forth to questions. Hi, and thank you for the approval letter. You are very welcome. Thank you for trusting me to guide you. And the follow-up with my team. My team's amazing, aren't they? What is the lowest credit score? Is there any difference between 710 and 780? That is a great question. So the lowest credit score is 350. The highest credit score is 850. It doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. As long as you're over 680 for the Dream for All program, you get the same deal as everybody else. Being over 700 lets you spend more of your income towards your debts. Under 700, we have to be a little more strict on how much we'll let you get qualified for. That's the only key difference. So 700 and above, you can spend more of your income towards your bills. Below 700, you can't. You get the same deal, unless you're choosing to have us finance the closing costs. Now you have to pay mortgage insurance, either as a monthly fee or a one-time fee. If you do that, if you pay the mortgage insurance as a monthly fee or as a one-time fee, it is based on your credit score. And so the better your credit score, the cheaper your mortgage insurance is going to be. That's the only time credit matters on the Dream for All program. Okay, so 350 to 850, you have to be at least 680. If you're low income, you can be as low as 660, but there's going to be no difference between 710 and 780 when it comes to using this program, unless you're not putting the 20% towards down payment and you want us to use some of that towards your closing costs. All right, that was a great question. All right, keep your questions coming. So let's go back over here. So on this page right at the top, I want to show you a couple important things. So first of all, my YouTube channel, if you have not gone to my YouTube channel before, you need to. That is where this is streaming right now. And I've got a lot of videos in here. I've got a lot of content in here about the Dream for All program. You can book a call with me. Those are going to be ending around Wednesday of next week. So if you really need one-on-one time, you can still get it. On Wednesday, I'm going to pull the plug on that because I got to focus on the people that I need to call that have urgent questions. And I can't afford to fill my time with somebody who just chooses to call and isn't even sure if they're anyway. I think you understand my point. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody who has questions, but I've got to really be careful to prioritize my time on somebody who's almost there instead of having somebody on the last day call me just to talk for an hour about whether I think the program's a good idea. Okay, so you can book a call right now. The two things I want to show you is my calculator, and I want to show you the apply now. So the apply now is the number one thing you need to do tonight. If you are on this call and you have not already started the process with us to get pre-approved, if you haven't started the process with anybody to get pre-approved, this is where you need to start, okay? You need to start by filling out the loan application. There are 4 things that have to happen, okay? The first thing, you need to complete the loan application. So you're going to plug in your email, you're going to continue, or you can text yourself the link to the mobile app, and you can do it on your phone. You can do it either way, okay? Once you do that, you need to fill out the application. So you got to register for it, and you got to fill out the application. That's step 2. So that's going to be 2 years of your employment history, 2 years of your address history, your employer's name, your job title, all of those fun things. And then the third thing, you're going to upload income documents. This portal is a smart to-do list, and it's secure. Once you complete the application, it's going to give you a list of all the paperwork that you need to submit to us. The one thing it's going to ask for, we don't need right now, is bank statements. Feel free to give them to us, but we don't need them in most situations. We will need them once we're in the point of buying a home. Okay, so fill in all the information there, upload all the paperwork is the third step, uploading paperwork. The fourth step is paying for the credit. I mentioned earlier, soft credit, it's the only cost you're going to have through this process. It's $58 for the credit. You're going to get a separate link from us to pay that. It's not going to be on this portal. Once you've completed the portal, the next day during business hours, and by the way, we're kind of working all weekend for the next 2 weekends. I got my staff spread out over the weekend days, and we're going to make sure that we're available 7 days a week right now to make sure that you get taken care of. So we're going to send you the link to pay for the credit. Once you've done all 4 of those things, created an account in the portal, submitted your loan application, uploaded your documentation, and paid for the credit, we're taking 2 to 3 days to finish. Now, if you get us the information next week on Saturday and it's taking us 2 to 3 days, there's a problem because our deadline is Monday. Now, we're going to work really, really hard next weekend to get them done and get them done as fast as we possibly can. Don't wait until then. You literally need to start the process now. If you've already done that, or once you get the golden ticket, I call it the golden ticket. Once you get the golden ticket from us, now you've got to go to the state's website and you need to register there. So there's another step. By the way, if you happen to be watching this and it's like Saturday, the 14th, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's not enough time to get it done. There is, but you need to be working on the state's website at the same time as we're working on your pre-approval, so that the state's website is fully filled out. And the only thing you're waiting on is my pre-approval letter so that you can upload it and be done. So that's the key. You can't wait to start on the state's website for me to finish reviewing your income and your credit. You've got to start on the state's website as soon as possible. So if you already have a voucher, or if you don't have a voucher, pre-approval letter, but you plan on getting one, this is the next step. You're going to go to the Dream for All portal right here. And you're going to scroll down over here and you're going to click on the application portal. Remember, this ends on Monday, March 16th at 5 p.m. It's done. It's closed. You're finished. Shut down. If you didn't press submit, if it didn't upload, you're out of luck for at least a year, maybe longer. You're going to click on this application portal right here, and you're going to fill out their application. You're going to need to upload your photo ID. You're going to need to upload your pre-approval letter, and they're going to want you to upload your birth certificate. Sometimes it's required. Sometimes it's optional. That's the paperwork you're going to need to have. If you spent time in foster care or institutional care, you're going to upload the documentation to prove that as well. Okay, so IDs for all borrowers, the Dream for All pre-approval letter, you need to have your parents' information, your foster care documentation. This is all of the paperwork that you're going to need to upload. And then you get all of that uploaded. And as soon as you get that uploaded, you are in the lottery. And you need to notify me that you got in, because my team's going to keep bugging you and reaching out to you, because I don't want you to miss the lottery just because you thought I was registering you. I had one person in 2024 that happened to. That one person that we called in June and said, hey, do you have any questions while we wait for, I don't know, something happened. And the way we talked about it, they said they said, thank you for getting us registered in the lottery. And I said, what do you mean thank you? Like you did that yourself. And they're like, no, we didn't do it. And as we looked back in our emails and text messages, we had texted them back and forth. And we had said, did you register yourself in the lottery? And then they asked a question, and then there was some back and forth, and basically they said, yes, we did that, we're done. But they were answering the wrong question. We misunderstood. They answered the wrong question. We checked them off as having been in the lottery. We're trying to make sure that never happens. We tried in 2024 to make sure that didn't happen. Unfortunately, we can't control it. Like, as much as we try really, really hard to be clear in communication, you've all played that game as a kid or even as an adult, where you're supposed to draw a picture with your eyes closed based on what somebody described, and it ends up being totally different than the picture that's up on the board. Okay, because communication is something that breaks down pretty easily, because it's what somebody thinks they're saying versus what the other person is hearing is not always the same thing. Why am I saying that? Because I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. I want to make sure that if we put all this time and effort into getting you into the lottery, you have 11 days left to fulfill all of these steps. I'm going to have at least 2 more webinars. I'll probably do another one on Saturday, the 14th. As one last webinar to answer questions for anybody. But at that point, you're close to too late. Okay. We had some people that snuck in on Sunday, and we got their pre-approval letter done on Monday back in April of 2024, but don't count on it. Like, we have to go first come, first serve. And I'm not going to sacrifice somebody who had been waiting since Thursday with their paperwork to take care of somebody that put their paperwork in on Sunday. So this is the weekend to get done. I've talked to a dozen people today who says, oh yeah, that's right, I'm going to work on it this weekend. You got to work on it now. If you have not started the process, scan the QR code right here. Click on the top right corner that says apply now. Go into my mobile app and start the application process now, because time is running out. I'm not kidding. It's the only time that this is going to be offered this year, and it's been 2 years since it was offered the last time. All right, the last thing I'm going to show you is, if you do have questions, like, John, seriously, I really want to know, like, how do the numbers work? I have created a calculator. Okay, so my calculator, this is kind of just a generic version of the calculator, but once you log in, you're going to be here where you can actually see your calculations and run your own calculations. You can put in information about your income. You can put in information about your debts. Okay, and then you can see your calculations. And you can say, hey, I want to buy $1 million home. Or you can say, what's the most I qualify for? And it'll tell you right here the most you qualify for. And if I say, well, I'm going to get rid of one person's income, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to ignore this person's income. And so now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say, now what's the most I qualify for? About $530,000. This gives you all 3 of your scenarios. So this is your lowest cash to close. This is you just paying your closing costs. This is your most out of pocket. You can click this customize button, and you can actually just play with it all the way along and say, hey, I want to put in $20,000 exactly. Okay, cool. Well, you put in $20,000. Here's your monthly payment based on this purchase price. So I've tried really hard to give you all of the information you need at your fingertips, not because I'm not going to take great care of you, but because I want to take great care of you. You're going to get a voucher in 60 days or 90 days. And you're going to be out looking at a home, and you're going to say, wait a second, this house has a homeowners association. What's that going to mean? And you can go into my calculator and you can edit and say, well, let's see what that means, because let's add in here a $250 homeowners association. And then I'm including that in your math. So now it changes the numbers and says, gosh, the most I qualify for if it has a homeowners association is $465,000 if I want 0 money out of pocket. But what if interest rates fall? You can play with the numbers and say, well, if interest rates are lower, now it's a higher price at $465,000. So there's a lot of things that you can play with here. And my goal is to get you that information at your fingertips. I will go through all of this with you after March 16th when we do our one-on-one, and we spend a half hour or an hour or whatever amount of time that we need in order to make sure that you get all your questions answered and to show you what your buy it now options are. I had multiple people last year that said, John, I'm in the lottery, but I'm looking around, I'm seeing some great houses right now. I don't know if I want to wait. Well, let's look and see what your buy it now options look like, and I'll show you those as well. That doesn't mean I'm trying to convince you to buy now. Doesn't mean I'm trying to convince you to buy without Dream for All, but I'm trying to educate you on what all your options are, and you can see those right here. You can actually scroll down, and it gives you one example of a buy it now scenario. It's only one, but I've got one generalized example of a buy it now scenario built into this. So my goal is to help guide you. My goal is to give you all of the tools you need to succeed. Success does not mean using this program. Success does not mean buying a home this year. Success means getting you to your goal on your timeline. And as I said 5 times already, I won't give up on you if you won't give up on me. And if your timeline is now and your goal is here, I'll help you make it happen. If your timeline is when the Dream for All gods say that you are blessed to have a voucher and then we're going to make it happen for you, I will make that happen. And if you decide, you know what, I don't know if right now home ownership is right for me, you're wrong. I'm kidding. I will help you when you're ready. Okay, I'm not here to convince you to do something that you don't feel is right. What I'm here to do is to help you get out of your own way. Because that's the thing that I see the most of people is they get in their own way. They get in their own head. They overthink things. They overanalyze. Here's the deal. Home ownership is a great investment. And sometimes it means you stop investing in something else for a short period of time. Because that investment in your 401k, you can turn up and down like a volume knob. Home ownership, you can't. You're either a homeowner or you're a renter. And sometimes there's a pretty big jump between what you pay to rent a property and what you pay to own it. And so to get you up to that jump, to get you up to that level, sometimes we've got to talk about strategies like decreasing where you're putting money in other investments. Because the mortgage payment on a home goes down or stays the same over time. Your rent payment stays the same or goes up over time. And so when you think about that, over time, you might jump up right now on your house payment compared to the rent, but over time, the rent's going to go up. And over time, the mortgage payment is going to stay the same or go down, and then they'll cross. And that's the moment that you absolutely save money each and every month being a homeowner. That's the moment that it pays you to be a homeowner today. Now, in the beginning, it pays you to be a homeowner in the long run, but it costs you some money right now. Now, there's some intangible benefits, tax deductions, that kind of thing that are beneficial to you, but that's later money. That's not now money. So those are things that we've got to evaluate to help you decide, is this the right thing for you to do? The final thing that I'll leave you with is most of you, your parents have never owned a home, or it's been a long time since they've owned a home, or you're an immigrant and they've never owned a home in the United States. And so there's a lot of lack of understanding about the home buying process. And so I'm going to be focused over the 2 months or so between when you're finished registering for the lottery and when we find out who the winners are. And I'm going to educate you. I'm going to have a masterclass series of how to buy a home. It's actually going to be under how to buy homes. There's a website I own, and it has the word masterclass in it. Anyway, I'm going to give you a masterclass on how to buy homes, and I'm going to guide you through that process. And so I want you to join me on that journey so that you are ready, whether you get a voucher, you're on the waiting list, or you don't get a voucher. I want you to be educated, and this is the time for us to be educated while we're waiting to find out if we're going to get a voucher. So guys, I've got about 2 or 3 minutes left before my promised 1 hour time. There's about a dozen and a half people spread across different platforms right now that are watching. If you have any questions right now is the time to ask the questions. Otherwise, I'm wrapping up here in the next 30 seconds if no questions pop up. So I want to, first of all, thank you for trusting me. If you haven't started the process, once again, you need to scan this QR code right here or type in CaliforniaDreamForAll.info. That's my website. Click on Apply Now up in the top. Do it tonight. Don't wait until this weekend. Do not wait until next week. Get it started now so that I can help guide you through the process. If you have a golden ticket, make sure you get yourself registered right now. Don't wait until the end. Do what it takes to get yourself into the game. You can't win if you're not playing the game. Okay. Once you're in the game, then you can decide if you want to get out. But don't sit on the sidelines wondering. Jump in the game. Be a part of the process. The worst you're going to do is learn. And if you learn that it is the wrong thing for you, that is a lesson well worth it. And if you learn that it is the right thing, you're going to be happy that you got into the lottery. It doesn't look like I have any other questions. So guys, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate your trust. I really appreciate your sharing this message with anybody you know that could use this information and would like to take advantage of this program. I'd be honored to serve them as I am honored to serve you. I also do every other type of loan program that's out there pretty much. And down the road, when it's time to refinance, I'm going to help you with that too. So I am a full service lender. My team is here to take great care of you no matter what your needs are. And I really appreciate your trust. Please, if you haven't subscribed already to my YouTube channel and you're not on YouTube right now, scan this QR code, click on the YouTube on the top and press subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And that'll make sure that you're getting all the updates that I'm giving over the next couple of months about my masterclass on how to buy a home. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful Thursday night. If you have more questions or you just like watching me, join me Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I will see you then. Otherwise, enjoy your Thursday night. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.